Hello, I'm Harvey Lockhart. I'm the founder, executive, and artistic director for Hill Center for the Arts. Welcome to our Intellectual Artist Series Student Podcast. This student-led podcast is where our students learn and discuss the arts discipline that they're studying, from the history, the culture, the business behind it. Anything you can think of arts related, our students are talking about it. Stay tuned, and we know that you'll enjoy today's episode.
All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to session 2 of season 6 of the Intellectual Artist Series. Yes, I'm so excited to be here with y'all again today for us to continue our discussion on Moving to Higher Ground by Wynton Marsalis. So first of all, I want to shout out our partner for this season of the series, the St. Louis County Library. We're really excited for this partnership. Let's get into the panel. Who do we have? Mr. Harvey Lockhart, founder and director of Hill Center for the Arts. By the way, we're a nonprofit organization dedicated to providing high quality music and arts education to all students, especially those from underserved communities. To my far right, we have the drummer, Mr. Irvin Neal. Hello. To my left, we have the pianist, Mr. Charlie Brown. And then to my far left, we have the bassist, Mr. Ben Wheeler. Excited to talk with y'all again today. Thank you for being here. So today, our topic is democracy and the blues. Now, we kind of touched on democracy last conversation, in that we discussed how each person in the band setting has their own particular roles, and it's their responsibility to create space for one another and kind of like work in tandem with one another. So today we want to expound on that and talk about how blues can be democratic. So talk about how the blues represents an aspect of each of our lived experiences. So the first question to kick it off, what are the blues?
Good question. I guess the blues is all of the above. You know, it's the things that make you happy. It's the things that make you sad. It's the things that make you human. And I think that's kind of how, I think that's probably the best way to describe it. You can't, I mean, it's intimately your own, has your own meaning, whatever you make of it, you know. I mean, it's the good and the bad and the ugly and the, you know, it's all of the above. Anybody else want to?
I like the word journey. It is.
Yeah.
The Harvey used. It's a journey. So, like he says, the good, the bad, and the in between. So, it's a wide span of things. Be pretty much in.
I could quote Chick Corea. He did a clinic about the blues, and of course, when he was talking and playing at the same time, and playing this really, he was just showing all the possibilities. But he said the blues is a universal communication, which was an interesting way of phrasing it. But I think it also speaks to democracy, because it's like we have like founding principles, and it's one of the founding principles of jazz. That's what I was thinking when I was trying to think of a connection. But I think universal communication, like, you might not even know if you're listening to a blues because it sounds so different than the other one you heard.
Yeah. You mentioned journey. You mentioned the blues being a journey. Could you talk about the journey you've taken with the blues, whether it's learning, your personal experiences?
Me personally, just like I said, it's just like walking. So when you start off, you kind of catching your steps or whatnot. Then you get a little bit older, you can run a little bit. Get a little bit older, you can run, walk, jog, whatever. So just progression on just within my life with playing on the different attributes I could put into it, being now versus when I was started off playing. I was just trying to chick, boom, chick type deal. Now I'm trying to, well, how can I make this feel better? How can I answer off of them? Things of that nature. So things just growing and progression.
So would you say your personal growth is like related to your musical growth?
Oh, 100%. 100%. Music is my life. So yeah, it's an intricate part of my life. So yeah, they need to keep it in the, where it's not at, they need to put it back into where it was, let it remain. Music is an intricate part of life, I think, and just in period. So yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry, you want to speak on that?
Yeah. For me, I'll talk about maybe the the journey of learning about the blues and learning how to play the blues, learning what the blues really is. When in education they kind of teach you, that it's just this sound, or you got this blue note, or play the blues scale, and that's
or people were sad and so they made
right
this music.
Like this note actually means
good music.
this is a sad note, right? So, and it's so butt backwards, because that's not what it is at all, But as we dive into the blues and learn about the history of this music a little bit more and go to the forefathers and foremothers, or I don't know, for lack of a better term, foreparents, people who came before us, our musical ancestors, we go back and we study their work. We see that it's just a portrayal of their life. It's a honest portrayal of their life, what they went through, their hang-ups, the things that they celebrated, and then we that's when you're talking about, you listen to the vocalists, but then when you go into the musicians, you hear, they're playing their emotions out, and you can't really put words to it but you can feel it, and then sometimes it's highly intellectual what they're saying. Other times it's just like you just sit back and you just feel what they're playing. So it's all of the above. And then sometimes people are just, they take the spirit of the music out of it and they just go with the technical side of it, and that's not the blues. That's something else. But it's not. It lacks the spiritual element that speaks to what the blues really is about.
Yeah. There's a quote in the 3rd chapter, page 59, when Mr. Marcellus is talking about, I think, what you're talking about now. He says, "But with the blues, as with other aspects of any art, knowledge only augments your ability. Ignorance does not enable talent." Does that?
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
Yeah. So I mean that's the point. It's a whole journey. Like we're all still learning how to play the blues. I think the more we study the music, the more we understand, what was being communicated through the music. I think that's when we can kind of get our ego out the way and get our honesty and our spirit in the way, so that we can, just express ourselves freely, based on what we've studied, traditionally with our our music upbringing. But we apply those concepts to communicate how we feel effectively and emotionally, and just with the utmost honesty as possible.
That's good. You mentioned ego being in the way. I almost feel that could be sort of a defense mechanism in a way, to not dive deeper into the true, your true feelings in a way. So Mr. Marcellus talks about this also. I will read this quote, and we can explore that further. He says, "Some people think playing blues has to do with whether or not you suffer from some obvious social pathology. Man, everyone on earth pays some kind of dues. With the blues, the question is, how did those dues hit you? What do you want to do about it? How do you want to make other people feel? And do you have the courage and ability to tell them about it? If you want to get rid of your blues and do the same for other people, playing the blues is the best way I know how to do it." What does that say to you?
Trying to play the blues is, it's obviously it's finding a way to express ourselves, but we're finding that way to do that with a bunch of other people that are expressing themselves too, So, as we mature, as we grow as a person, our perspectives change, and the way that we communicate that to others, it's probably probably got off the subject from.
No, you're right on. Yeah.
But it's never the same. You know what I mean? We, our perspective, one day is different than another day. You know what I mean? Whatever I went through yesterday is going to affect how I play today. or how I woke up this morning, or how my night went, or whatever, you know what I mean, is going to affect how I see things today, and how I approach the music, and how I hear everyone else's perspective too. Everyone else's perspective is going to change my change the way my perspective is going to change, and it's going to also change the way that I hear everyone else's perspective. So it's always going to be a journey, because you just never know where everybody else is for the day.
Isn't it? It's also kind of like, to me, it's like it has something to do with, I guess, what you call world music, because of the diaspora of people that. I mean, so the blues is an American art form, I would say, but like what led to it was clearly, I mean, like historical events like slavery, just a fact of American, where we're at now, and but some of the characteristics come from like freed peoples, I mean, like from like, well, I mean, I know not all slaves were stolen from Africa, to use Bob Marley lyrics, but the Caribbean and other places. But so some of these are musical traditions that come from other cultures. I mean, it's kind of like that's why it's hard the academic stuff we're talking about. We're trying to put this in this Western music box, and because like the pentatonic scale. This is getting technical, and you can't just teach someone that and think that they're going to play the blues. That's and I didn't grow up in the church. Like, I'm Jewish, so like it was hard for me to learn the blues. Maybe I could relate to it because Jewish music is in a minor key and has a certain sadness to it, or to me. But even happy music is in a minor key in that music. So, but Asian music, and music in China uses the pentatonic scale. It's another culture, but it's simple. But it was like one of the harder things for me to play. I could play Parker before I could play that because of the experience you need, and also because there's a paradox there. Like sometimes what's simple is actually deceptively complex, because there's 5 notes in a pentatonic scale. I think I read in The Art of War, which is a Japanese thing, but it's good for musicians, I think, or for anyone. Especially in a conflict, it's how to avoid conflict. But he said something, Sun Tzu or something. Yeah, said something about there's only 5 notes in the scale, but there's infinite in between the variation in between the notes, and that's like the expressiveness that you can't teach that. How do you teach someone to have soul? Like you have to experience. I feel like you can't fake that.
Yeah.
Or else it sounds fake. You
gotta tap into yours. Yeah. That's deep. You said putting blues in a box, and how sometimes I know I was under the impression at one point that blues was like sad music simply. That's not the case. Mr. Marcellus talks about this in the book. Yes, there are sad stories, but also happy ones. Like some songs have happy ending. It's reflective of the human experience. And it got me thinking about how blues and jazz is put in a box in general, which led to the writing of this book, and Mr. Marcellus attempting to demystify jazz and like fight the concept that jazz is only for a specific group of people. And I definitely think that is translated into the educational space as well, to where it's not as heavily studied. And I wanted to know your perspective on that, Mr. Harvey, as an educator. How you feel about that?
Yeah, to really understand the blues and this music period, it requires deep study. I mean, it's no way around it. And I've tried for years. When I was first learning how to play this music, I said, okay, well, let me just try to do everything I can. Let me go find every pattern in the book. Go find a book and learn all these patterns. Let me, that's what was pitched to me. Go here's this book. Go study this book, or go do this. Unfortunately, it wasn't taught to me. Go to the source. Go to the recording and spend time with the recording. Like, just sit there, listen to this music over and over again. Let it come into you, into your soul, and you kind of get an understanding of what this musician was saying, what they were communicating, you know. And when we play the blues together, it's fun. You know, it's not. I don't feel sad. I'm not going to a funeral or nobody is dying on stage, and no, it's fun. We especially when we're engaged in what everybody. It's like we having a conversation. We getting the brothers together, and it's a party on stage in front of everybody, and it's a beautiful thing when you experience it from that point of view. And as far as education is concerned, I think the way that we pass the music on to the next generation is to ensure that we teach it to them in that way, that it is a community art form. It's a community style of music. It's something that, you learn by hearing the stories. You learn by being a part of the conversation. You learn by, you're not going to get it in the book. You're not going to get the spirit of it from a book. You might learn who some of the practitioners were from the book, but you won't get a chance to really get the true essence of who that person was, what they were about, until you spend time learning about the stories. You learn. It's so many things that you will learn just by sitting around, going to the jam sessions and talking to the musicians and learning what they, learning the good, bad, and ugly behind the way they think and why they play the way that they play. And when you talk to the musicians, if there's a musician that's a little out there, a little wild, and then you say, "Oh man, I see why you play like that, because that's just how you are," or if they colorful, they wear their hair a certain way, or they dress a certain way, and it comes out, in their playing. So, and it's a beautiful thing to see so many people artistically have so many ways of expressing themselves, and I think all forms of expression could be associated with blues, and it's embodied in the music.
Mm-hmm. That's good. You mentioned blues being a communal experience, and I wonder if the sort of falling away from jazz and blues education that Mr. Marcellus references in his book is tied to our society's gradual devaluing of community. Like, as we grow more individualistic, we don't see like a need for it anymore. And I wonder, like, how can we go about rebuilding that and helping the people see the importance of community?
Well, yeah, well, I was thinking before, what if there was a blues? I've never seen a grade school have a blues, maybe the orchestra or the band. But blues is, if you're going to teach a student, you might start with that because there's less to work with and you can express yourself with a few notes. So imagine if everyone was involved in that in school. It might be a far-fetched idea, but especially when you're talking about today's topic, blues and democracy. So it's a mode you could learn about a lot. Because I'm sure I'm sure there's many ways that it has something. There's democracy is tied up in it because it started as our democracy was figuring itself out, and I think there's implications that are beyond music for learning, and everyone can get involved. I think faster. And what if in India, like, you learn by rote? It's not about on paper. So what if our education involved learning by ear, and then you can learn how to listen more too, and the nuance of it. But I think you're right about it's not about being sad all the time, It's and especially when the lyrics stopped being about being sad, they started calling it rhythm and blues, and then it became rock and roll, when the general public, some of whom weren't sad in the 1950s, we have it great, we're in the suburbs and have cars, and so they weren't trying to hear about sadness, and so it caught. So without the blues, there's no rock and roll. It's probably more important to learn about in jazz and blues in our culture than classical music. No offense to the greats, but it's our classical music. So, but people, to me, my students tend to not understand the difference between blues and jazz, but those are boxes too, right? So, I think that jazz without the blues is what some people complain about for modern jazz these days, or maybe that people think it's cliche to play these things, but but without emotion, you know, the music's something else, which is, it could be valid, but I feel like St. Louis, we have kept that tradition. It seems to me, at least, or some people have.
Yeah. I think, you know, just to address the community side, I think we have to be intentional about getting the community out. I mean, nowadays it's so easy. It's so easy to stay at home. Especially you have a large family. It's hard for me to get out sometimes. A lot of times I'm out working all day, then come home and I want to be with my family, and then it's hard to, you know, come right back out after that. So, but the community itself, like, how do we make it accessible to them? I think they have to see the importance of it. They have to experience it first. I mean, there's not too many live music concerts accessible to people who don't have the means to get there, you know, and that's why we bring programs like this here to the library in our monthly jazz jam, for people to come out here right in their community. They don't have to travel that far to appreciate and do something new. But the challenge is, can we stick with it long enough for it to catch on, no matter what? I think eventually people will catch on to it, you know, once they are aware, once we spend more time to be more intentional, to go in the neighborhoods. Hey, this is right here in your community. Or even if we do some things outside, you know, people drive by and just, you know, outside, that people can come by, walk outside their house and hear some live music and hear people and see people congregating and coming together. More festivals need to happen, you know, even if it doesn't. Well, it really doesn't require that much money, because we saw it happening during the pandemic when these musicians were putting on concerts at their house, on their front yard, and then people came outside and like, man, I never knew that you were a musician. I didn't know that you played at that level, and this is amazing. And people were patronizing them, but it just stopped, you know. And I mean, if we get back to that, you know, and people start doing more of that, you have community concerts series happening on everybody's block. I mean, because there's a musician everywhere. It's a musician everywhere that's playing music in their basement, you know, and having a good time. But I think we need to be more intentional about sharing our art. You know, I'm talking to myself more than anybody, you know, just being more intentional about getting our original music out, you know, and just promoting ourselves, promoting our community, and just making people aware that, you know, art is still alive and well.
That's good. You were talking to me too about being more intentional about sharing your art, which kind of leads into the next question. First I'll read this quote. Just talking about finding your voice and feeling confident enough to share what you have to say. On page 60 in chapter 3, Mr. Marcellus says the following: "There's something strangely personal about how you play the blues. It's impossible to imitate another person's blues feeling. You can learn some runs or licks, but you can't find the same sound. No two people play the blues alike. Someone can sound like John Coltrane, but not on the blues, especially when it's played slow. The slower a blues is, the less you can imitate, and the more you are forced to find your own holler, your cry, your thing. That makes the blues musician easy to identify. A listener can hear the difference between artists by the way they play the blues." How does one find their holler, their voice?
I'll say life. Yeah, that's a good way to explain it. Just your life, ups and downs, trials you go through, then preferably you have gotten through this, so trial tribulation, then getting to the better side of it, the higher end of it, and seeing that journey that you have started here, but you made it there. So, what was the question? The first word you said?
How you find your holler?
How do you find my sound? Okay, yeah. So trial and error also, and then I won't discount knowing previous ones that have done it. It is good to know them and to, as Harvey said, listen to them and get to, because you can't play it the same way twice, but he might put an extra note in between it, which makes it his sound now. I might hear Harvey playing it, and I might put an extra note on the end, which makes it my sound now. So it might still be a similarity to where you started at, but just putting in your own special little thing that makes it yours. So that's why I said that will give you your own sound. And then next time Ellis hears it, now Ellis has his thing now. You sound like your dad a little bit, but you got your own, you know what I'm saying? So it just keeps growing and growing as long as you put your own little part into it. But, you know, learning from the older ones and taking it further than that. So, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, hollering. Well, to me, you know, I kind of liken it to like prayer. You know, it's like when you pray, you know, sometimes you get to a point to where you feel like, man, I'm so burdened, or this thing is so important that I need to pray about, that I need to go deeper. So I need to cry. Sometimes you got to cry it out. Sometimes you got to allow yourself to be exposed in that moment. And I think that's what true honesty is. You know, if you go down and you pray, you're exposing your heart, you know, to your God, who you believe will answer you and be able to solve all your problems. So it's the same thing, but it's not necessarily praying to anybody with the blues, but it's a matter of expressing, like, this is what I feel. This is what's going on in me right now. Like, somebody just stepped on my toe and it really hurts. Like, I can't say ouch like this. Like, I need to scream it. Like, you stepped on my toe with steel toe shoes, and I can't be quiet about it. You know, so like with any emotion, you know, like the intensity of it, because there's levels, man. It's levels to it. So, and we all know that, you know, it's visual things that we hear, things that we smell. You know, you talk about some food that your mom just cooked, or your wife just cooked, or that your uncle, and you talking about it in this blues, like, man, Uncle such and such made some killing barbecue. And like you just thinking about that barbecue that you ate, and while you're on stage communicating the blues. So it's just your own story and your own way of you know, connecting and expressing to the audience, you know, your experiences. So your own experiences, I think it's just about being open and willing to share in front of other people. And I think that's what John Coltrane was about. I mean, he had an enormous musical vocabulary, but he also had a unique way of tying it all in emotionally, like blending it in emotionally. So, which is why he could play for hours, and the intensity just kept going, getting even more intense. And if you listen to his ballads, the way he played the ballad, still to this day, I haven't heard anybody play a ballad like John Coltrane. John Coltrane, Miles Davis are like some of the best ballad players ever. You know, I mean, no comparison.
You got me thinking about A Love Supreme, which is not a blues album per se, but there's blues out. But I think it's Psalm, where he wrote a poem, and it's like very. So I know. I mean, if you're praying, you're not. But there's an aspect of this that's like it uses his poem as religious, like universal religious type of words and themes. It's like, but he I think he wrote the poem first, and he played the poem on his horn, because if you read along, it goes right with it, and it's pretty amazing to do that. But the sound, it's simplistic and just like, yeah. So there's blues, but there's blues in it too. And there's that album called Blues and the Abstract Truth. I don't know what that has to do with anything, but I just love that title. I think it's very evocative of something we're talking about. This is communicating something we can't put in words, you know.
That's good. I think that's a good place to pause on. I appreciate you all engaging in this conversation. Before we go though, we need a song recommendation for the people. So like if you have any blues albums you recommend people check out if they want to get more acquainted with blues, your favorites.
For the more intricate beboppy side of it, I like Wardell Gray, Twisted. I was trying to quote that when I was playing because it's fun and it shows you the transition from like simpler blues to like the swing into bebop kind of. But it's a fun one, and someone put words to it as well that made it even more fun. What was it called? Twisted. That's what.
I think for me the one that I've always listened to since I was a kid is Oscar Peterson Trio +1 Clark Terry. There's lots of blues on that album, but just the playing itself and the way everybody, the honesty that everybody has on that is pretty profound, I think. So
I like the album Soul Brother Soul Meeting by it's with Ray Charles and Milt Jackson. It's so killing. But whole lot of blues. I think the album is all blues, I believe. But you'll get a chance to hear Ray Charles play saxophone. I believe it's Ray Charles on a tune called How Long Blues. Man, it's amazing.
You gave me some homework, Harv.
Yeah.
I know.
Check that out. My wife gets tired of me hearing it, singing it. Moody's Mood for Love. I just love that song. But yeah, I'll sit and listen to that for just hours and shit. Will you turn that? So I'll just keep repeating. And then I got on a record too, so I just let it just go. Just put it right back on. But that's my jam right there.
Yeah,
that's my jam. So yeah.
Thank you all so much. Thank you everyone for joining us for this conversation. Thank you everyone online for joining us as well. Yeah.